All right, for the sake of time this morning, just to keep up with our schedule, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning, everybody. My name is Drew Walter. I'm with the Almond Board of California. I'm their Pest Management Senior Specialist, and I'd like to start by thanking all our speakers, absolutely, and everyone here in the audience for attending our review of mating disruption options and incentive programs for almond growers in California. Mating disruption, as many of you guys know, is the backbone of a sound IPM program in California for navel orangeworm. We're talking about multiple crops here. Navel orangeworm is our key pest. So today, really what we're going to do is a product review from the different companies and what we have to offer. And then we're going to go into an update for an incentive program. Many of you guys are probably familiar. NRCS has a $5.95 incentive program for folks that want to develop a sound IPM program for navel orangeworm. So without further ado, again, to keep time, I'm going to go ahead and get to our Dpr Check-In first and foremost. So any of you guys that are looking for continuing education units, here's the QR code. Go ahead and scan. There's also going to be a checkout scan, and both of these QR codes are going to be available outside, right outside in the booth. So again, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and present our speakers. First up is going to be Janine Lowry with Pacific Biocontrol. Next will be Danielle Kirkpatrick with Trece, followed by Abigail Welch with Simios, and Emily Sims could not join us this morning, but we have a fantastic sub, Mondo Perez. And then we will have a pre-recorded session by Karen Lowell with NRCS to cover the $5.95 program. Without further ado, thank you, Janine.
You're welcome to show me the...
Yep.
Where's the pointer?
Pointer will be right here, and forward's just the big green.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Janine Larimore, and I am the Northern California rep for Pacific Biocontrol. I've been with the company for about 7 years now, and been working with pheromones for about 20 years in my career. Pacific Biocontrol is one of the original pheromone companies in the industry. We've been in business for over 35 years. Our main focus is pheromone development and pheromone research in insect behavior and biology, and creating efficacious products and economic products for our customers. We're extremely dedicated to product and field support, and not only at the beginning of the season, but all throughout the year as well. So our product is called Isomate Mist Now. It's an aerosol product. Ours are called mist units or misters. And our target crop with this product is almonds and pistachios. These go out at 1 unit per acre. We prefer to have deployment around April 1st. And these are programmed to go on during the key NOW flight hours over the evening. It's all pre-programmed before you receive it. These also have a temperature sensor in the emitter in the top unit there. And so if our evening temperatures, particularly in the spring, drop below 48 degrees, that unit turns off. It conserves your active ingredient and gives you a little longer length on the end. This is a product that lasts at least 225 days, so it has tremendous longevity, gets you through that October flight and activity. And unfortunately, this product is not for organic use. It is our only product of our Isomate products that cannot be used in organics. It has to do with the diluent in the can. So these arrive to our customers in 2 parts. It's the emitter, which is on the right, and the can is on the left. And it comes with a hook that's included. In order to activate the unit, you simply snap the top onto the can. You'll get an initial spray, and it's ready to hang. Extremely simple. Our units are consistent and reliable. Our design has been in the field for over 8 seasons, and we kind of consider it tried and true. Every year, you get a new unit. These units are quality checked 3 times before they ever hit the warehouse and before they hit the field. We provide tremendous product support and field support, again, in the beginning with training and deployment. And we also like to check our fields and check our units throughout the season. Report back to our PCAs, report back to our growers on how that unit's working, what's left in the can, and growers really appreciate that they know that their investment's out there working all season. So we provide a placement map customized to your orchard, and we do this by taking into account wind direction, topography, what's next to that orchard, The goal, of course, is to create an even, consistent plume that covers all edges of your block. We utilize Google Earth, we work with our growers to get tree spacing, and we return a placement map and directions back to our growers. So if you're new to disruption, or you're considering disruption, or you're new to our product, I like to emphasize that deployment is extremely quick and easy. Don't be intimidated by this process. A lot of times when I talk to my first-time customers, they are amazed at how easy and how quick that whole deployment went. So to give you an example, 200 to 300 acres could be easily deployed in an afternoon, 2 to 3 hours with a couple people. It really does go quickly. We provide the training, like I said. We work with the grower or the foreman or the crew. We provide that map, so you have that map to follow, mark your trees. These units are hung in the upper third of the canopy. We like them to face downwind, not into the scaffold like that bottom unit there is shown. That can, I want you to leave it out all through harvest, allow it to empty at the end of the year, leave it up all winter around, and then you come back in the following spring, you take the old unit down and you put the new unit up. One trip through the field. So it's not uncommon when we're meeting with growers for them to ask, well, if I add pheromones, am I not gonna have to spray, right? You guys wanna switch something out. And my first answer to that is, well, it's navel orangeworm we're talking about here, so you will still be spraying. But this kind of got us thinking back in 2019, we wanted to quantify what long-term NOW disruption will do on a population. And you have to realize the ultimate goal with a pheromone program is long-term population decline. That's the ultimate goal in any pheromone. And you want to have that population decline so you get that ultimate economic benefit. So we did a replicated trial with a contract researcher in Chico and initiated this in 2019. And we wanted to really document how disruption would decline NOW. There were 4 40-acre grower standard blocks, 4 40-acre isomate mist blocks. Each of them had 4 pheromone traps, Peterson traps, egg traps, and then we also did injury data at the end of the season. So I'm going to kind of go through. Each year is a little different, and I think it's really important when you're looking at NOW management to look at all pieces of the puzzle: weather, pressure, what's around, what's happening in the industry. So in 2019, we had a very wet spring. A lot of people couldn't get into their fields, and so sanitation was minimal that year. This grower put on a pyrethroid May spray and 2 hull split sprays. And again, the only difference between the grower standard and the disruption block is the addition of the pheromone. Everything received the same treatments. So first year out, our grower standard are the orange bars and the pheromone blocks are the blue bars. We were able to reduce egg laying by 47%. Pheromone traps were shut down as we expected, and injury was reduced by a whopping 76%. And again, this was a high pressure year. 2019 was probably one of our last really high pressure years, and so on these damaging years, that's when you get this really big swing when you put pheromone in. Oops, gotta go back. So in 2020, we had a drier spring. The grower performed a stronger sanitation program. They opted out of the May spray, and they did the same 2 hull split sprays. And again, we saw a tremendous amount of egg laying. We reduced it by 75% second year in. Injury was reduced by 80%, but this was a little bit of a lower pressure year, right? The grower standard had only 1% damage, and we reduced that pheromone to 0.2. Again, the grower was extremely happy, and we know that would clean up to about 0. So jumping to 2021, this last year, again, we had a dry spring. Moderate sanitation, a lot of the mummies weren't coming off, it was too dry. We saw a strong early flight up north, and so the grower opted to do a May spray on the grower standard, or just only the grower standard. And again, we saw another year of tremendous egg reduction. Again, we're trying to drive that population down, and that's what we're seeing. We reduced egg laying by 70%, and pheromone traps were pretty much shut down. And nut injury, again, lower pressure year up there. Grower standard was pretty clean, and our disruption block was 0. 4,000 net crack out, 0 worms. So when you line these 3 years up and you kind of look at it, we see the trend that we want to see, right? The top chart is our injury, and over the 3 years, we see this dramatic reduction in injury. And the bottom chart, that's where you really look and you see the population dynamics that are changing. Again, year over year over year, you're driving that egg laying down to an extremely low population. Your standard egg laying stays about the same. And so the thing that I really want you to understand is that, right, this year was a cleaner year, but we all know that there's going to be another 2017, 2019, and this is where you want to be when that next hard year comes around. You know, you want to be at a low level, so it's maybe a blip on the screen instead of a catastrophic event. In 2020, we also did mummy infestation counts, and we were pleased to see that we reduced mummy infestation by 75%. Again, further showing that we're reducing that overall population year after year, which is your ultimate goal with your pheromone. And with that, I'll wrap up, and I thank you for listening. This is our California team.
Thank you very, very much. Next up is Danielle Kirkpatrick with Tresse.
Is it just the green button to go forward?
Yep, laser pointer if you need it.
Thank you. So good morning. My name is Danielle Kirkpatrick. I am the Global Technical Support Coordinator at Tresse, and my background is in entomology. And so I'd just like to briefly first touch on our different product lines that we have available at Tresse. So we have what is called our Ferricon product line, which is our insect monitoring traps and lures. And then as far as our mating disruption product line, that is called the Sidetrack product line for insect control. So our Ferricon product line was first commercialized 48 years ago and then was developed further by Tresse starting 37 years ago. And we continue to develop more species-specific pheromone and caromone lures even today. We focused heavily on navel orangeworm, and the monitoring line focused around navel orangeworm for developing monitoring traps and lures. We currently offer 4 different trap designs for monitoring traps for navel orangeworm. Which trap you want to use in your IPM program depends on your objectives and your time input available. So using a delta trap is a little bit easier to change out that adhesive liner used to capture the traps. Has the removable adhesive liner in the bottom of the trap, but you could potentially see lower captures when using the delta trap. So quicker time to change out the liners, but maybe a little bit lower captures. And with the 1C trap, that takes a little bit longer to service with that adhesive bottom, but you could potentially see higher captures with those traps. So focused specifically for navel orangeworm, we have our pheromone lure, which is our NOW lure. We have a female attracted system, which is our egg trap. And then we have our multi-gender attractant, which is our Ferricon Ppo Lure. And new to our product line, we also have what we call the predator trap, and this is for detection of predators such as six-spotted thrips and beetles that are predators for the mites. And so we use our pheromone traps to set biofix and track captures over time. You want to place these out in the orchard in mid-March. And we consistently see higher captures with our NOW pheromone lure compared to competitor lures over the full season. So for our Ppo lure, this is the multi-gender attractant, as I mentioned before, captures both males and females. And this Ppo lure should be used in combination in a trap with a pheromone-only lure as well, so you have higher captures over the season. These Ppo lures can be used with any of the monitoring traps shown there on the bottom. And they can be used in both conventional and mating-disrupted orchards, but their greatest utility really is in mating-disrupted orchard systems. And so typically with a pheromone-only lure, when we put that out in a mating-disrupted orchard, what we want to see is trap shutdown over the season, and that's that red line on the graph there. But in comparison with the Ppo plus pheromone lure, using this lure in a mating-disrupted orchard really lets us track captures over the season, so that way we can still track phenology and make treatment decisions using this trap and lure. So just to wrap up on our monitoring lures for NOW, so in a mating disrupted orchard, the greatest utility and the best lure to use is going to be that pheromone-only lure to track your captures over the season. But then in a mating disrupted orchard, you want to use your pheromone-only lure, which is going to tell you how well your mating disruption is working in your orchard. But then also use the PPO plus pheromone-only lure in a separate trap to track phenology in your orchard as well. However, when you use both the pheromone and this PPO lure in separate traps, you want to make sure to separate these traps by at least 5 trees or more, so that way you're not having trap competition by using the different lures. And so that wraps up our monitoring options for NOW, and now I'll tell you a little bit about our Sidetrack monitoring line. So for NOW, our product is called the NOW Meso. And our Meso dispensers utilize a PVC formulation matrix. So these are passive dispensers that have a controlled release technology that is utilized season long. Not only was this developed at Trace, but we currently still make all of our Sidetrack dispensers at Trace headquarters in Oklahoma. We take the active ingredient, but we also incorporate things like UV protectants and antioxidants. This protects the pheromone while it's out in the dispensers and out in the fields, and protects the pheromone from damaging sunlight and oxygen, and prevents free radical buildup on the surface of those dispensers. When we were first developing and testing this PVC formulation matrix, we tested it in a number of different climates to ensure that it would hold up in different harsh environments. And one of the environments that it was tested in was in the South African environment. So we want to make sure that this formulation matrix would hold up in very hot and very sunny environments. And so we were able to determine that it was able to last season long in South African environments, and so it holds up very well also in California hot climates during the season as well. And so this is just an aging study, a graph of an aging study that was conducted using the dispensers, and this graph just shows that halfway through the season at the 4-month mark, the dispensers had released about 50% of their pheromone, showing that the dispensers are long-lasting through post-harvest and provide season-long or longer control of navel orangeworm. Our Sidetrack NOW Meso is registered for use in walnuts, pistachios, almonds, and figs, and is also registered for use in organic systems as well. Our passive dispensers are easy to install. Once you go out and hang them up, there's no other checks that you have to go out and do. There's no moving parts, no batteries. You don't have to worry about turning anything on. Once you go out and hang them on a secure branch, they're turned on season long and are constantly releasing pheromone 24/7 throughout your orchard. Our NOW Meso has an application rate that is a range from 15 to 28 dispensers per acre. For a moderate population abundance, we like to recommend the 20 dispensers per acre. And at this rate, at the 20 dispenser per acre application rate, it takes about an hour to apply 4 to 5 acres with these dispensers. And so this is just a comparative study that we did a number of years ago with the USDA, Dr. Chuck Burks, and this just shows that compared to a non-mating disrupted environment, that using any of those 3 rates per acre, you will see a reduction in damage at harvest. And then again, just another graph showing that compared to a grower standard insecticide only, that when combining that with well-timed spray applications and the mating disruption as part of your program, you will see a consistent reduction in damage over just an insecticide only program. And a study that was conducted out of UC looking at our passive dispensers compared with a number of aerosol dispensers, we see that there's season-long trap shutdown, and the green line is the Trace mating disruption dispensers, and at the end of the season, we don't see that spike in captures like some of the other aerosol dispensers did in this study. And furthermore, we saw full season damage reduction that was as well or better than some of the aerosol dispensers when using the Trace mating disruption product. One of the other things that we like to highlight is that we have user-friendly packaging. So when you purchase the products, it's shipped to you in these carrier packs. And this is a look or a view looking down into the carrier pack box there. So it comes with a Velcro strip that can be attached to the box to create a shoulder strap to carry the box out into the orchard with you. So everything that you need to apply 4 acres at the 20 dispensers per acre rate is inside of this package here. The foil packs are where the dispensers are packaged, and they are sealed so that way the pheromone is not releasing until those packages are opened. You also have your rotating hooks, which is what is used to apply the dispensers, and then each box also comes with the applicator tip used to apply the dispensers out in the orchard. So we have a user-friendly application system. All you have to supply is a 6-foot pole or maybe a little bit longer depending on the height of your trees. You go out into the orchard using the rotating hook and the PVC dispenser, and the dispensers go up onto a stable branch up in the canopy. If you need to reach branches that are a little bit higher, people like to sometimes use a pool cleaning pole to give you more range and height. And you see the applicator tip on the end of either the PVC pole or this pool pole. You attach the rotating hook right into the top of that applicator tip, and then the dispensers go up onto the tree branch, and that rotating hook will rotate so the dispenser will hang up and down. And so just to wrap up, benefits of using Sidetrack mating disruption, we consistently see a 50 to 80% reduction in injury when using mating disruption as part of your program. And adoption is rapidly increasing over the last 5 years of mating disruption, especially with things like resistance issues or losing certain chemistries of insecticides. It's unlikely to develop resistance to the pheromone. And mating disruption is safe for workers, and it's even safer for beneficial insects in your orchard as well. With our passive dispensers, there's never a chance of any mechanical failure. There's no moving parts. You just go out, hang them up, and then you can leave them season-long or longer. There's no need to take them down, and you don't have to prune them out if you don't want to. You can leave them up and go out the next year and use that same tree that was already marked for a dispenser and reapply the next year. And we consistently see a return on investment when adding mating disruption as part of your overall IPM program. So that is all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And next up, we have Abigail Welch with Simios.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. My name is Abby. I am an entomologist at Simios, and I'm just going to present our navel orangeworm products to you today. So we have 2 formulations currently. We have Now Extra and Now Eco. Extra is for conventional, Eco is organically certified. Both of them were registered in California a few years back. Extra was in 2016 and Eco was in 2018. They are both liquid aerosol products, and they are registered for almonds as well as pistachios, walnuts, dates, figs, citrus, anything that navel orangeworm is a major pest of. And it has a 0 REI and a 0 PHI. These are the labels for them. You can find them on our website. You can also look them up on Agrian. They're available to you if you need them for any reason for reporting purposes. Okay, so the way that we install is a little bit different, and I'm going to start by talking about our dispenser. I like to call them smart dispensers because they have GPS coordinates in them. So when we place them out in the orchard, we put them 1 per acre, and we know where they are so we can get back to them at any time throughout the season. The reason for that is because they have sensors in them, and they also report device status and health back to us every 10 minutes, so we know if they're working properly. They contain humidity, temperature, and pressure sensors in them. Those help us to inform how to release our application rates for the pheromones, which I will explain in a moment. And we also have proximity sensors on them as well, and that just helps us track the rate of release. So we know how much is coming out each time it dispenses and if it is working. If not, we can go out and maintain and service those throughout the season. Because they are remotely monitored, we can turn them on or off and reprogram them at any time. All of this helps ensure that the grower gets full coverage all season long because we just know if or when things are going wrong. Okay, so directions for use are a little different because all of the installation is done by Simios. You don't have to actually worry about hanging them yourself, but this is how we do it. We hang them about upper third of the tree canopy with a nozzle pointing away from the foliage. We place them about 1 per acre, and the dosing levels can vary because we are a variable rate, and that can be between 153 grams to 614 grams of formulation per acre per year. And then you can log on to the Simios Live account and monitor your pest activity. So our application, like I stated, is a variable rate mating disruption. So we can track our pest activity using our in-canopy degree days from our weather stations and our automated camera traps. And that allows us to maximize our pheromone release when the crop is vulnerable and when pest activity is high. You don't need to use a sprayer. There's nothing that you need to calibrate. Everything is done remotely. So anytime during peak pest activity or when the almonds are vulnerable specifically, we release up to 1.7 times more than anything else available on the market currently. So like I said, once you have all of this installed in your orchard, you can log on and monitor your pest activity and see what's going on out there. So what you're looking at up there in the top is where the traps are placed, and that's a daily image. So every day you'll get a count of those navel orangeworm captures, as well as an image. And then at the bottom there, you're looking at a graph of degree day tracking as well as trap capture for each day throughout the season. So this just allows the grower and the PCA to collaborate together to make pest management decisions throughout the season. That's also driving the pheromone release rates. So like I said, because they're GPS coordinated and they are remotely communicating with us every 10 minutes, we're able to give you a placement map of where they are. You can also start to get data back and do modeling with these. So you can view where they are, but you can also you can see your microclimate data and the variability that affects your management decisions. So things like temperature heat maps, humidity heat maps, degree day maps, and whole split maps are all things that we can generate through the smart dispenser that we place out there. And these are all things that you can use to make your pest management decisions throughout the season and help decrease navel orangeworm damage over time. That's all I have for you, and thank you so much. If you have questions, I think we're doing those at the end.
Thank you, Abby. Next up, we have Mondo Perez filling in for Emily Sims, and they are with Cetera.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Mondo Perez, and I have been with the wonderful company for 11 plus years. I joined Cetera in 2017, but before that I was a pest control advisor at Wonderful Orchards and Wonderful Citrus. Let me know if you can't hear me. But we're all aware that what we're talking about, you see in the previous slides, we're obviously talking about navel orangeworm. This is a significant threat in the industry. I would say that it's been a serious threat in the industry for years. So it's like, what do you do? How can you control this? So let's go ahead and talk about the pillars of a successful IPM program. This is very important. This is something that you want to sit down and discuss with your grower, how to strategize with for your IPM program and how to control NOW. It's going to require a comprehensive IPM program. You can see here that there's 5 different components here that lists the ways that you can control navel orangeworm. You can see that there's multiple tactics here that they need to support each other to manage NOW. There's not one single tactic that can do it on its own. So you see the 5 here, they complement each other, and so that's the best way to manage your IPM program for navel orangeworm. The other thing too is the IPM approach. It has been proven to mitigate the impacts of NOW, and it allows the growers to achieve the industry standard. So what is that standard, right? You want low levels of NOW infestation or low levels of NOW damage. I'm not going to get right into it and talk about everything here, but I just want to point out a few. One of them is the cultural practices. Sanitation is very important. Mating disruption, insect options, so you want to make sure wild timing for insecticide. You know, we got questions this year about how to monitor navel orangeworm throughout the season. It's a great question, right? It's something that we want to be able to support you guys in helping you to manage that. There's different ways. There's the monitoring and decision support. So there's the delta traps, right? There's the traps, there's the egg traps that you can check to see the females if they're laying eggs. If you have mating disruption, you can see if they're blank or not. You have sanitation, so when they're shaking, you can go in there and do a mummy assessment, see how many mummies are on the trees. If you have overwintering, just know that those mummies there are potential food source for navel orangeworm. Also, there's when you're doing sanitation and the mummy's on the ground, you go there and you disc or you mow. You can go on the ground and you can do the assessment there to see what your infestation levels look like. And then there's the early splits. I don't know if anybody still does this, but once it gets to the 1%, you could go in there and you can do your survey and see what your levels of infestation at 1%. So there are different ways that you can monitor NOW. So the question is, how do you want to incorporate mating disruption into your program? And there's multiple products here that Cetera has. And we also have a deliverable system for pheromones. There's two that I'm going to list right now. There is the puffer solution, which is aerosol. And then you have the sprayable formulation, which is a microencapsulated. And so those are two different ways. We will discuss them in a little bit throughout this discussion. And it's important to remember that the active ingredient, the pheromone, is the same high quality chemistry throughout all products here. So the differences are the delivery mechanism. You got aerosol versus sprayable. And then you got the inner ingredients, which is the core formulas present in these deliverable products. So one of the puffer solutions that we're talking about here is a Checkmate Puffer NOW Ace. This is, you can deploy it, it's 1 per acre. That's the rate. I'm going to talk a little bit about the engineer here. So hopefully the engineering department gets really happy with what I have to say about this product. But the engineer, there's two things I'm going to emphasize here is provide and deliver. So for providing, you want to provide consistent, it's going to provide consistent and reliable disruptions. It's season long and can go into post-harvest. And then our puffers are also engineered to deliver a precise meter dose of pheromone during the active mating period of the night, season long. So here you will see that there's a half cabinet design here. That's for the, by the way, this is for conventional, it's not organic. So the half cabinet design here is for conventional use, and it's pre-programmed. So it's a temperature sensor pre-programmed for time zone and pest puffing suppressed below biological relevant temperatures. So that's very important that you guys know that there's a temperature sensor in that half cabinet design. So in the case of NOW, the pheromone emission, it's suppressed below temperatures where females are not active at night, and the males, they're not actively responding to that, or they're not flying to locate females, so you have no idea what the males are doing. This also means that there's more flexibility. The flexibility is that you can deploy these puffers a lot earlier. Your typical timing is March or April timing, well now you can deploy them a lot earlier, so you don't have to worry about the pheromone, the timing. You just have that temperature sensor that it can suppress that pheromone, and it can start earlier if needed. When you deploy the unit, we'll test puff when turned on to let you know that it's working, and then it will emit the pheromone once the temperatures meet the biological threshold. You also have 0 reentry pre-harvest interval. There is an MR is exempt. There's also, you got to report this in the pesticide use report. Another important note that comes to temperature sensor is that the decision to puff or emit the pheromone. So it's made at the emission interval. So our puffers, they come on at 5 p.m. till 5 a.m. It's every 15 minutes. So if it reaches below 50 Fahrenheit, there's going to be a very small portion of that pheromone being released. And so you're basically, you're not going to have that the whole entire night. So if anything goes higher than 50 degrees, it's going to start releasing more pheromone out. So the early season low temperatures, suppression also means that the active ingredient in the can is reserved. So it's reserved for when the moths are active and they're ready to mate, and therefore can last longer into fall post-harvest. So when high population late season flights are still mating, you have no wasted active ingredient. So the other aerosol solution is our Checkmate Puffer NOW or ACE, which is our organic. This was launched this year. Our organic products are compliant with the APA, the National Organic Program, which is the NOP. Always consult with your organic certifier to ensure the products are listed on your individual use permits. So just like it is, it's 1 puffer per acre. It's season long, it's consistent, it's precise release rate. Again, there's 0 reentry, 0 pre-harvest, and then you gotta make sure you report that in the pesticide use report. The organic product is currently in our food cabinet model. It's based on ideal specifications related to the organic formulation. So the puffer application overview, this is, Sotera provides expert mapping. So if you guys need any mapping for that, just let us know. We also have training for puffer deployment. And so you can go ahead and reach out to Sotera and we can go ahead and provide those services. All right, so the other product for Sotera is Checkmate NOW Flowable. This is a microencapsulated sprayable formulation. This is 3 fluid ounces and it's up to 30 days. I'm going to talk about in the next slide how you can use and incorporate NOW Flowable into your IPM program. By the way, the Checkmate NOW Flowable is 4 hours reentry. It's a 0-day pre-harvest interval. There's no MRLs. So to incorporate your sprayable formulation into your program, there's 2 different ways. There's a ground application and there's an aerial application. If you decide to do an area application with Checkmate NOW Flowable, you can go as low as 5 gallons per acre. You can tank mix with any agrochemical. Also, you can do a ground application with our flowable material. So you can either tank mix it, so you can put it in as a free ride. That's one of the options. The other one is a standalone, where it's efficient. You can do it as a standalone. There's a little bit more flexibility when you do a standalone, because you can go up to 4 gallons per acre. You can go up as 4 miles per hour. You can go as low as 40 gallons per acre. You can skip every other row. So if you have any questions about tank mixing it with any agrochemicals, you can reach out to Sotera, to customer care. We also have a compatibility guide that go ahead and we went ahead and we tested over 40 to 50 agrochemicals with the NOW Flowable. I will tell you right now that's over 95%. Most agrochemicals are compatible. So if you have any questions about tank mixing it, just call one of us and we can go ahead and provide that information to you. The common spray, I would say that it's 2 to 3 spray program that most common PCAs are using this flowable. If you decide to do a 4 spray program with our flowable, then you might want to consider a season-long NOW puffers, because our puffers are 240 days, where the flowable is up to 30 days. But you have that flexibility. You have another tool in your toolbox that you can have in your IPM strategy for navel orangeworm. The benefits of mating disruption and the overall IPM program, this is like the Jeopardy chart right here. There's numerous benefits to incorporate mating disruption into your NOW IPM program. There's been, not only the industry, but the third party has continued to show that the technology is proven to reduce damage, increase quality, and provide return on investment. I think I could be very honest here. As a PCA and having countless meetings, sitting down, going over budgets, you're looking at the return on investment, how to save a buck, is it worth it? You know, you spend long hours going out to these fields in all weather conditions, and you want the best results. So adding mating disruption is one of the best results, because then you start looking at reducing inputs. And that's so important, because year after year, you're gonna start seeing that. And so that's really key, and I think it's beneficial. So just to go on to the ROI and the less tangibles, when you start laying, like I said, you start laying on these other multiple tactics and that, and you put in mating disruption in there, it's just reliable, right? You're adding that to your IPM program, so it makes everything more effective. And that's just like, how cool is that? Because it's like, I want to have an effective program. I want to have the best results. I want to be the best at the end and just give the best to the company and say, yes, we got less than like 1% damage, less than 0.5% damage. That's our goal, right? So it's, you know, your drive and your mission, we all have the same mission. We want to reduce the population. We want to suppress the numbers. We want to have less damage at the end. So, you know, when you add these all into your factors and having mating disruption, it just benefits at the end. You're just gonna see that return of investment. The other thing is you have your sustainability goals, you know, your commodity and your marketing boards are regulatory, you know, regulatory and their pressures. The Almond conference or the Almond board, actually, they have a sustainable goal, I think by 2025, I could be wrong. But there's also the marketing and PR, which is also the organic certifications and branding. And then we're also gonna have a discussion right after myself. I think we're gonna have potential financial incentives. So these are programs in which you guys are gonna hear about shortly. And this may be available to offset the cost of your IPM inputs, such as mating disruption. So this is our year-round, full-time, boots-on-the-ground team here to serve you. I am kind of corny because in the meetings I say this is my Avenger team. We are here to encounter, so you might see some of us these last 3 days in the booth or somewhere around here. We are a grower-owned company. That means that we exist to provide solutions and always want to hear feedback on improving our current offerings and what we may be able to develop in the future to help you. And that's very important because I work a lot with general feedback with customers. And because of where we are today, it's because of you. It's not because of me, but it's because of you. Because of your feedback, we develop, we innovate, and we think about the future for you guys. So just to show you, that was the sales team, the technical team, the field service, grower relations, and customer care. And lastly, the California team is also backed by world-class operations. This is in the United States and Bend, Oregon. We have experts in chemistry, engineering, product development, and improvement to continue our partnership with growers, advisors, and end users to work together. And if you ever get a chance, if you're ever around Bend, Oregon, stop by there. I'm sure they'll show you around and give you a tour of it. So we want to make sure we provide a world-class pest management and monitoring solutions for you guys. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to our last piece here, and I'm glad Mondo mentioned so much about a sound IPM program, really tackling navel orangeworm as a problem in California. Doesn't just require mating disruption, it requires orchard sanitation and many, many, many other components. While mating disruption is the backbone for controlling navel orangeworm, it takes an entire program to really be successful. So NRCS, Karen Lowell, will have a recorded presentation here.
Hello, my name is Karen Lowell. I'm an agronomist with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. NRCS is a federal agency that works with farmers and ranchers to identify conservation concerns, develop a plan to address them by applying conservation practices. Today I'm going to talk about one of those practices, the Pest Management Conservation System, number 595 for us, and discuss how it might be useful in supporting adoption of some of the management strategies that you've heard discussed by the earlier speakers today. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I will be with you in person for the panel discussion that follows. So for our agency as a conservation organization, everything that we deliver hinges from our conservation planning practices and the creation of a conservation plan. That all happens by an invitation from you. We are non-regulatory and we come only at your invitation to walk around your operation with you, hear your concerns, hear your interests, look at the natural resources upon which your production systems rely, and then develop a plan to address the concerns that you've identified and that are of interest to you. Sometimes folks think that it's possible to get just a single practice, but I want to emphasize that in order to get any financial assistance from us, it is necessary to do this conservation plan. That's where everything begins for us. So as I said, today I'm going to talk primarily about this conservation practice 595 called Conservation Pest Management System now. It used to be called Integrated Pest Management. With some sort of robust effort by NRCS agronomists around the country, we worked to create opportunities to support the kinds of activities that you've just heard about. So when we implement a practice, what happens when somebody has been approved to receive financial assistance from us, we create what we call an implementation requirement. And that just lists the specific activities or documentation that a customer would be required to share with us so that we can document that the practice has been implemented according to our standard and specification. Now, in the case of pest management, we lean heavily on the excellent resources that our land-grant university, UC, has created in their UC IPM program. So what I'm going to describe to you is actually really a UC IPM program that we are pointing to and leading you to, incentivizing you to adopt and use as part of your management approach for this particular pest in an almond orchard. In particular, in this example, we worked closely with Jalendra Rajal and David Haviland, both working actively in this arena, to look closely at the year-round almond IPM program and identify what did they consider to be the core minimum practices to say that you have implemented an IPM approach to managing now in almond. So these were the 4 core strategies, core activities that they felt constituted a credible IPM system targeting now in almond. Orchard sanitation and mummy nut removal, use of mating disruption, timing and targeting of any pesticide application, and attention to your harvest date. So you'll notice that the real foundational strategy is really paying close attention to what's happening in your orchard, whether it's the presence of mummy nuts, the pest, or monitoring closely how your crop is maturing. What we're incentivizing is not payment for a specific thing, but rather an approach to using information, pulling that information from science-based guidelines developed by UC to manage the pests in a way that has a solid IPM basis. So the devil's in the details, and always when I have these conversations with producers, they say, okay, fine, but what precisely do you want me to provide in order to say that I've completed the practice? So again, working with Jalendra and David, we scoured that documentation and we came up with this list of items that would be required to say that the practice has been implemented. First, the date the mummy nuts were counted and an average count for a minimum of 20 trees. Now we do note that some trees and some orchards and tree architectures might be such that reaching the threshold, the target threshold for maximum nuts per tree in an orchard, it may not be practically attainable. And in that case, we accept that, but we do ask then that you provide an invoice showing that you invested a minimum of 200 an acre to try to bring that number down. Second, the type of traps and the date placed, and the monitoring results from that. Now, both of those might be covered by simply providing an invoice if you have a hired pest management service on the contracted orchard. If you don't, then it would be good to have a conversation with the NRCS conservation planner to be clear on, well, what do you want by way of my own notes or my own documentation to demonstrate that I have indeed done the trap, I have indeed placed the traps, monitored them, and used that information to guide my management activities. We also ask for the harvest date. Now, I want to be really clear, we do not deny payment based on the harvest date. We recognize there are many factors that might influence when you harvest. We just want to, again, incentivize collecting that information and using it as you evaluate your pest management activities. So, for example, in the next bullet, record pests or pest damage noted in a harvest sample, minimum 500 nuts. If you would, for instance, notice that the blocks that were harvested later showed higher pest damage, that might add information for next year's management. That's what we're incentivizing, is bringing the best information to the management decisions. We are a conservation organization, and the last two bullets address that emphasis for us. So we do need a list of pesticides, including your mating disruption products, that are used on the contracted acreage in the year in which you are implementing the practice with our financial support. That includes the name, rate, and application date of any of the products. One way to get that to us easily and succinctly is to offer your pesticide use report. Again, the next item is another thing that is our emphasis on conservation. We want to document what efforts you've made to avoid pesticide impact on sensitive areas. That might include things like plantings intended to support pollinators or beneficial insects, or worker rest areas, or water near your production area. And that might easily be done by using a map that your NRCS conservation planner can provide, and then just talking it through and describing what do you do to make sure that you don't impact those areas. Now, I want to be clear on a few things that often come up when we have these conversations in detail with producers. We do not provide pest management recommendations, and we do not require any change in your pesticide use in order to do this practice with us. While mating disruption might lead to the ability to reduce a spray, it is not guaranteed, and David and Jalendra's guidance at this time does not indicate that that should be a requirement, so it is not. I want to note that I'm talking about how you could use this practice to address navel orangeworm and almonds, but it could also be used to address a different pest or disease issue in a different crop. So if you grow other crops, which many of you do, please feel free to discuss other opportunities with your conservation planner. Financial assistance is available to eligible growers through several Farm Bill funded programs. The first step is to get to work with an NRCS planner to create a conservation plan. As I said, that's a requirement to move forward. And the best way to start that process is just to contact your local NRCS office, a phone call, or drop by and schedule a visit to your orchard, your operation. And then looping back to the previous bullet, once you've worked with a planner a little bit, then ask them, what's the best program for me? They can also help you determine if you are eligible for financial assistance through Farm Bill funded programs. So really your first step is to talk to your local office, start the process of a conservation plan, and let them help you pick the best program. There's EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, there's Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, but really the best approach is to let them help you find the best fit. So thank you very much for your attention. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person. I will be here for the question and answer session in the panel discussion. So thank you for your attention, and I hope to hear from some of you who might hope to get some support to adopt the strategies you've heard about today.
All right, so the bullet points seem like quite a few things to check off, but honestly, most growers or PCAs are already managing to check off, I'd say 80 to 90% of those points of criteria to really qualify for that type of funding. Karen could not be here today with us, but we have a colleague in the back here that's going to be communicating via text. So if you guys do have questions for her, let me know. We'll coordinate that and get you the answer. At this point, I'd really like to open it up for questions for any of our panelists here on the production side or Karen Lowell, which will reach via text. Looks like we got one coming. Patrick? Yep.
You know, it's my understanding for mating disruption to work, you got to have kind of an area-wide approach to it, not just one block here and everyone else not doing it. I mean, how important is that now that we're thinking about mating disruption, that you know, we try to get larger blocks doing it so that all growers can, you know, benefit from it? Any of you can answer that.
It should be on. Yep.
Hello? You're right in that the strongest pheromone mating disruption program would be an area-wide, right, where you're managing the pest in all areas around, and especially with NOW, with it being such a strong flyer. But we have seen results with growers with smaller blocks or blocks that aren't or don't have neighbors that are disrupted that do still have the benefits inside, right? And especially, you know, in certain areas of California where it's really a patchwork of growers with various sizes. You've got one grower that really wants to get on board and others that might be a little bit more reluctant, but those growers still do see an impact. You have to watch your edges for mated females flying in. I'll have customers that say, well, can I add more pheromone to those edges? And I will say, no amount of pheromone that you put in that block is going to keep your neighbor's mated females from flying in. And another thing you need to realize is with this pheromone, it is not an attractant. So what's in our cans is very different than what's in a lure. So you are not pulling in your neighbor's problems. That's often a myth that I hear, especially with NOW. So yes, area-wide is best. And I'll also say that a lot of times if you're kind of the leader in the pack and you add pheromone, a lot of times there's going to be growers that will adopt also. I kind of call it the sacrificial lamb, right? That grower's going to go first, and then pretty soon you get more growers that are interested. They see them hanging in the trees, and they go, oh, you know, I've been kind of thinking about that. And then you can kind of increase adoption. You can host your own neighborhood kind of meetings where you're trying to get more interest in that. So I hope that helps. I don't know if anybody else wants to add into that.
Yeah, to add to that, I'm not sure if Jesse, you're in the room here, but Jesse Roseman with the Almond Board has actually gotten DPR funding to put together a neighborhood program. So it's much like Janine has mentioned, where you have the initial sacrificial lamb. We get one grower to adopt. We develop a neighborhood program around that. So the incentive and the funding we've reached is to really develop a neighborhood program in areas where we have lower adoption, or maybe it's growers with smaller acreage, while orchard configuration is mainly what plays a role there. It's still an issue where you have smaller growers maybe not being able to afford it, which is when the NRCS 595 incentive comes in, but it's also getting neighborhood programs together. So the Almond Board's working with DPR to develop that program. Any other question? Questions? Yeah, David. Yeah. Yep, so exactly. Gabrielle, any other questions for Karen? We can coordinate through Gabrielle and we can have a one-on-one discussion after with that. For me, I'd literally like to clarify, or at least make sure growers and PCAs, we all on the same page what trap shutdown means. It came up a few times, and I know talking to folks in the field, there's a notion where I think as an industry, we're trying to figure out what exactly that means. And for me, it's really looking at it as a negative control. If you're in a mating disruption orchard and you're experiencing trap shutdown, or you're seeing what's called trap shutdown, that's really your sign that your pheromones are working, your mating disruption is working. If you want to overcome that, again, to maybe see some of those numbers that you were seeing before, it won't be the same level, but you want to track flights, you can adapt by bringing in the Ppo Lure or a Peterson trap, and now you'll be able to see some numbers. It still won't be at the same level due to the mating disruption, but that to me, again, speaks to the fact that these mating disruption units are working. And the way you can check in your orchard is make sure you have a standard trapping mechanism out there where you see that trap shut down. That's the way you can say, okay, my mating disruption's working. That's your reassurance.
So just to answer David's questions about whether there are any caps on the acreage under the NRCS system, not at this time that Karen is aware of. Guidance is subject to change each funding cycle, so stay tuned, but not at this time.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Any other mating disruption questions, NRCS incentive questions?
Is there an idea of how much of the benefit can come from NRCS, or how much of the expense will be covered?
Where's Gabrielle? I think she's going to text that out. Okay, there you are. We'll get back to you on that, Brent. We have another one in the back here, okay? From my understanding, but we'll follow up with Karen, is that you need to adopt those, I think it was 6 main boxes for an IPM program, so that's the standard, and then your payment will be based off your acreage. And that's David's question of whether or not there's an acreage cap in terms of getting that incentive money. But to get the NRCS funding, again, you need to check those boxes, all of them, and it might seem overwhelming looking at, okay, I need to prove everything here, but your PCA or as a grower, you're already implementing most of those practices. If not, you're having a really tough time with navel orangeworm.
No, not with navel orangeworm. That's what, I get asked this a lot. We get, a lot of people think they're going to pull in everybody else's problem. And again, what is in, I know at least our product, it's not an attractant. It doesn't have all the components, the same components that a natural moth would or what a lure does. So you are not drawing. It's not, the disruption mechanism with NOW is, it's like saturation. So a moth flies into the plume and they no longer are able to detect the female scent. So again, you're not drawing them in, you're not attracting them.
Yeah, because it only uses one single component of their pheromone, it's desensitizing their antenna. So once they come into your orchard, they just can't find the other females, like Janine was saying, versus using a monitoring lure, which utilizes more components that is an attractive blend to bring them into your traps.
I always liken it to working on a dairy, where after a while you don't smell the dairy anymore, right?
Very true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was primarily about mating disruption and monitoring as a component, as you see with NRCS. And for Peterson trap, it's really about monitoring, not necessarily the component of mating disruption and interfering between that male-female interaction and obviously leveling off the population. The mass trapping is a component, but this session was particularly mating disruption. But good point. Thank you.
Just to at least start answering one of the questions, the NRCS payment is approximately $280 an acre this last go-around, and expect similar for the next year. I don't yet have an answer on the stacking, but I think Drew tried to answer that.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
And again, for stuff you're already doing, most growers, honestly, we're doing orchard sanitation, though there's the high cost. Keeping records of what your sprays are, that's being done by your PCA. Taking care of your riparian areas, that's something most of us are pretty conscious about. So you're checking all those boxes already, you might as well get that funding.
And do you know, I thought it said on there that it is available for other crops, like walnuts, mating description of walnuts, so that's
Yeah,
something-
exactly. As long as it's an IPM program, again, you have to check all those boxes, and as long as it's a sound IPM program and you're able to show proof of what you're doing, there it is. I think for me, the biggest thing that luckily David and Jalindra worked with Karen on was getting an RCS to see that pulling and getting it down to 2 mummies per tree, that's hard to do. We're not looking for that exact number, but we do want to show that you're making an effort to do that orchard sanitation.
You know, we all keep talking about the mummy shake, mummy shake. It's a regional issue. If you're down in the southern valley, last 2 to 3 years, there has been no fog. No matter how much you shake, mummies will not come down. There is no way you can come down to 2 or 3. And the damage you end up doing those trees, nobody has ever done the analysis how much damage is to those trees. In the previous session, we all heard that all these diseases, the cause of those are damage to the trees. So, you know, NRCS is saying, well, you know, if they need me to show that I have spent $200 on, you know, on mummy shake,
Yeah.
I will not do it because I have no benefit.
Fair enough. Thank you for that feedback.
There was a question over.
Question over here?
I have to change mine.
Never mind. Yeah, and I think that's where NRCS and David's feedback and Jalindra's feedback, again, was we're not looking to have the 2 mummies per tree, just show that you made the effort. But I understand the cost of sanitation is high. Looking at mummies, for me, it's not just thinking about navel orangeworm. You're talking about monolinea and inoculum. You're talking about aspergillus or aflatoxin as well. So you're talking navel orangeworm, sure, but you're talking about 2 other issues that you could be alleviating by doing a little bit of that shaking. That to me helps justify the cost, but I know it's still expensive with the cost of labor. So I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think definitely we have considered all the factors. The growers have so much feedback about what's going on. It's a year to year and it's different, right? In farming, it's just, you don't know what you're gonna have for 2022, 2023. You know, a few years ago, just hearing about growers that they have reduced their sanitation from like 100 to 75 to 50%, we know that there is some difficult decisions that the growers have to make, especially now with the water situation, with fertilizers and other nutrients are going, the prices are going up. You guys are challenged with a lot coming this season, and so, you know, we're here to just support that. We're just here just to also recommend the sanitation, because sanitation does help lower that NOW population and that overwintering. So, you know, I really like your guys' feedback on that, because that's very important and key to how you guys are going to see your performance with NOW for the next coming season. So any general feedback it's welcome, and we will take that and consider that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mondo. David, you had a question? Yeah, I think Flo showed some stuff with shaker damage being an issue along with pruning, but
Yeah,
it's something we do need research in, like you had stated, sir. Yep,
yeah, I can, testify
yep,
of this year. Insect damage, it's on the record is less than 1%. And we have been able to do in-shot for our non-prem. And I have not done,
yep,
I'm down in Southern California. I have not done mummy shake. I have not done polling because, again, polling do a lot of damage. You have to have a crew who is very careful. You may be shaking one mummy and you may be breaking 10 birds in that process.
yeah.
So all I'm saying is has anybody ever done any study on that? How much damage this thing in a dry weather we are doing to those trees when we are doing the mummy shake? There is no study, to my knowledge, to document how much damage is being done.
No, I think,
And what's the benefit of those?
Yeah.
We can continue to emphasize this point, but we got to understand the area by area.
I agree, and I appreciate the feedback. I do think that's a valid study to take into account in terms of what effect are we having on the tree through mummy shaking, polling, like you said. You're going to affect some of those spurs. And I definitely think Florenterias is looking into that as a possible project. Bob?
Since I go way back, I can say that Charlie Curtis, back at the beginning of the navel orangeworm IPM effort, did take a look at tree damage.
Okay.
And he didn't see any at that time. However, we're not talking about the band cankers and the phytophthora that we're seeing now, so it's probably worth a revisit.
I agree. Thank you, Bob. Wealth of knowledge. Any other questions? We're just about out of time here. We can take one more if we have one in the crowd. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending our session here with mating disruption and incentives. Thank you, everyone on the speaker panel.